If there's one thing that can keep you from living the life you want, it's fear. Specifically, the fear of moving to Mexico because all you see in the mainstream media is violence and chaos. They minimize this proud nation of 130 million people down to one single headline or a single bad week. But here's what they won't tell you. For the 1.6 million immigrants from the United States living here, those issues very rarely show up in our daily lives. While the news was focused on very specific cities last week, life in Merida continued exactly as usual. The media wants to program you to think that everywhere in Mexico is dangerous, because if they can control your perception, they won. But you're here on this channel to find out the reality. So let's get into it. When I was planning my move to Mexico, my number one fear wasn't actually safety. It was much more personal. It was being able to communicate in Spanish. In the States, I was used to being an independent person, but having a plan to move to Mexico, I was terrified of not being able to speak Spanish and having to rely on my wife and daughter for every single conversation or to solve every single problem. So in June of 2019, I did something about this fear. I spent 3 weeks in Merida by myself in intensive Spanish immersion classes. And here's the aha moment from that experience. I realized while I didn't know as much Spanish as I thought, the fear was much bigger than the reality. Once I faced my fear, explored why I felt that way, and accepted that I needed to actively do something to get better, I rose above that fear. Today, my Spanish ability is fully functional for daily life, even though sometimes it's a little clunky. And that independence is what has allowed me to achieve my dream. But here's the bigger point. Everyone planning to move to Mexico has something that they're worried about. And based on the hundreds of relocation plans that I reviewed, the number one fear isn't safety. It's running out of money. In fact, this concern shows a more than double the rate of people who are worried about their physical safety in Mexico. And honestly, that concern makes absolute perfect sense. Because let's face it, the main factor of sustaining a life abroad is simple. You must be able to earn in dollars and spend them anywhere. As I'm recording this right now, I'm sitting in Chiang Mai, Thailand. You'll hear more about that later. At the end of the day, the number one reason people pursue a life abroad is actually to improve their quality of life. Let's face it, people are tired of living paycheck to paycheck, and people are tired of the rat race of waking up, going to work, coming home, fixing dinner, going to sleep, doing it all over again. And if you're watching this video, you already understand something that many people don't. Work is what you do, not who you are. But here's one aspect that many people get very wrong. They expect everything in Mexico to be less expensive than it is in the United States. And that's just not reality. In fact, there are plenty of things that cost me more in Mexico than they do back home. Off the top of my head, consumer goods like clothes, shoes, and electronics are typically more expensive. If you want that brand new iPhone, well, guess what? It's almost 25% more in Mexico than it is in the United States. The price of gas is another one that's more expensive. Compared to a state like Georgia, fuel is often much higher. We routinely in Merida, Mexico, pay more than $4 a gallon for gas. Now, that's not to say there aren't areas where things are less expensive. For instance, food, housing, medical care, and education are usually where people see the biggest lifestyle upgrade for their money. But for a highly desirable city like Merida, Mexico, you'll need to go in with your eyes wide open. And depending on your lifestyle, you can absolutely spend the same or even more than you did back home. And it doesn't help that the dollar's been losing ground against the peso. So that's why creating a budget plan based on your current lifestyle and your future lifestyle is so critical. You also need to stress test your plan for currency swings. I've personally seen my monthly expenses jump as much as 25% from exchange rate changes alone. So what's your biggest fear about moving to Mexico? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. And like George Adair said, everything you ever wanted was on the other side of fear. Now, if you want to see exactly where your plan might be exposed and not guess at where the holes are, run your free Roadmap to Expat Readiness review. I'll leave the link below and also above. In just a few minutes, you'll see the areas of your plan that need attention before they become expensive mistakes. I've helped hundreds of remote workers and families make a move abroad the smart way, and I'd love to help you do the same. And if you're serious about working remotely from anywhere, you should watch this video next, because this video tells you about the areas that most people get it wrong. Until next time, MexitPlans Monty, I'm out.